It's the Cavaliers Basketball Club Podcast.
It's basketball time. The cube. LeBron left to the circle, left to the lane. Gonna go all the way and hammer it home. Everybody on their feet. Sends it for three. Are you kidding me? It's over. The 52-year drought is over. The Cavaliers have won the NBA championship.
We wanted to go in a different direction. We wanted a different approach.
60.
The shoot-around.
Welcome back to the CBC. We're excited to be back talking Cavs basketball.
The Cavs have had another up and down week. We will recap these games and touch on Garland's excellent production in the month of April.
The Cavaliers visited Tampa Bay to play the Toronto Raptors. Pandemic life, right? And got bit by Pascal Siakam, who scored 25 points to lead them on a second-half surge to win 112-96. OG Anunoby finished with 20, and rookie Malachi Flynn added 18. The Cavs were down 7 players and showed a lot of fight, but couldn't get in sync. Isaac Okoro led Cleveland with 20 points, Jared Allen had 15, and Darius Garland had 13, with 10 assists.
In our nation's capital, the Cavs gave the Wizards a handout, allowing them to come back late in the fourth quarter to win 119-110 on April 26th. Bradley Beal scored 33 points and took over late in the game. On a more positive note, the Cavs held Russell Westbrook to 14 points, 11 assists, and 5 rebounds, ending his triple-double streak. With Sexton out, Darius Garland led Cleveland with 28 points, and Jared Allen added another 27. He also had 12 huge rebounds. Even Cedi Osman made an appearance, scoring 19. The Cavs were in this game, but weren't able to close it out.
The Cavs traveled to Charlotte on Friday the 23rd, where they allowed the Hornets to erase a 10-point deficit, snatching a win from defeat with the final score of 108-102. Miles Bridges had 25 points, with PJ Washington and Terry Rozier also scoring 25 apiece. Sexland combined for 55 points, but the Cavs could not overcome their 17 turnovers for the night, combined with a stagnant offense in the second half.
On April 21st, the Cavs hosted the Chicago Bulls, who were coming in as the 10 seed. Cleveland was led by their backcourt, with Colin Sexton scoring 30 points and adding a season-high 7 assists. Darius Garland added 25 points. Kevin Love, who we've kind of mentioned needed to be more efficient, had 15 points and 9 rebounds in 25 minutes of play. For the Bulls, Lauri Markkanen had 16 points, mainly in the second half, and Thaddeus Young and Kobe White each had 14 points. Ultimately, it was a 121-105 thumping by Cleveland. Again, the Cavs had another really tough week, filled with injuries, turnovers, and lackluster play. They did have one win against the Bulls, which you ended up going to, so we have to cover that.
Absolutely. But first, let's talk about those 3 losses. What did you take away from those games?
All 3 of these games were extremely frustrated as a fan. I think you and I texted back and forth a few times, even mentioned wanting to turn the game off just because the level of play and their execution just wasn't there. And I also understand that injuries happen. So when you hear that Sexton's out, that Stevens is out, Bickerstaff missed the game against the Bulls, which they won. But like, how many people from this organization aren't going to make it to the game? So I think that it was just frustrating to see that all of a sudden Cedi, who hasn't been playing for the last 4 or 5 games, is suddenly starting. And it's not because all of a sudden Bickerstaff was like, all right, let's give him a shot. It was honestly because they don't have any other bodies. Taurean Prince out for the season. So they went from a healthy stretch for like 5 games, and then all of a sudden somebody, Nancy Kerrigan, all of their players or half of their team. So that was really frustrating just from the get-go before even the tip-off. After that, they were in a lot of these games, especially against the Wizards and the Hornets. Those were games that were a lot of fun to watch in the sense of there were stretches where they were surprising us with their level of play, especially against the Wizards. holding Westbrook to the stat total that he had was awesome. I could tell that Okoro played really well against him. But then the theme of this week and previous weeks is, again, just turnovers and the second half just ultimately killing them. Frustration is the word that I'll just keep saying over and over again, because that's what it was. I know this is a young team, and I know that incremental change is what happens with young teams, but more than one win in a week of games essentially would be nice. How do you feel, Adam?
Miserable. There's not a lot to talk about here. When you're missing 7 players, even your head coach, as you said so eloquently, we've been Nancy Kerrigan. That's a funny comment. We started the season this way, unfortunately, with a massive amount of injuries, and we're ending the season that way. I never imagined that Kevin Love would be back healthy and we'd be missing 7 other players and that he wouldn't be a part of that list. It's been a very odd season. Generally, with a younger team, you don't have to worry about season-ending injuries or issues that linger throughout the season the whole time. And we've really been unlucky this year. Just to go through the list really quick before we move on to the Bulls game. You got Dylan Windler out with surgery, patella tendon surgery, and so he is done. You got Larry Nance Jr. out for the rest of the season with a fracture in his right thumb. You've got Prince out with season-ending arthroscopic surgery on his left ankle. And now we have Lamar Stevens out with concussion, Colin Sexton out with a concussion, Hartenstein out with a concussion, and Dellavedova out with his neck, which frankly, it's kind of a surprise it wasn't a concussion because he got head-butted. We couldn't be more unlucky. So right now, it's very disheartening that we have to kind of sit through both an array of normal injuries or commonplace injuries, and then on top of that, these concussions that then just kind of cripple our team. With concussions, you also don't really know when you're going to get anybody back. So right now, it's a real tough end to a season that's been tough to begin with, and I don't have a lot of positives to hold on to right now, just with what's left of the season and what we were hoping for several episodes ago with playoff contention and what that would mean for this team. So yeah, it's been tough. It's been tough to watch the last few weeks.
So I don't live in Cleveland. Adam lives in the Cleveland area. I live in the Philly area. Adam got a chance to go see the Cavs in person, and he went and saw the Bulls game. And even though this season hasn't gone as planned, they don't have as many wins as they wanted, they still beat down the Bulls. So what was it like to go into the arena and watch them and just see a victory? And not only a victory, but a true thumping of another team.
So this was the first Cavs game for me this season. I actually haven't been to a game since COVID began, and I had a couple of opportunities actually to go, and I've been basically snowed out because that's Cleveland for you. I saw the opportunity to buy a cheap nosebleed seat, and I went to see the Bulls game. Unfortunately, due to life issues and just kind of work, I did not get there until about 3 minutes left of the first quarter. So I missed kind of the best part of the game in person, and I have to be full disclosure about that. Unfortunately, yeah, I got to get to the games on time. That's my own fault. It was a real surreal experience because it's still locked down and they only have about maybe a quarter or less of the capacity allowed in the stadium. So showing up, especially late, it felt like I was the only one there. Walking around, going through the team shop, there's nobody in the team shop. You go up through the hallways and basically there was hardly anybody at the concessions. A lot of the concessions were permanently closed. It felt like a building that was half open. So it was a really weird experience. And for the most part, where I sat, you were pretty divided and away from people. The closest people to me were 10 to 15 feet away. They were pumping crowd noise through the speakers the entire time. And I think that was probably both for me, the fan, and for the player. I often thought that it was helping mask some of their banter on the court, which probably helps with the live feed. So yeah, overall, from that experience, it was really weird. On the one hand, I really enjoyed it because I didn't have to deal with 20,000 fans screaming, and it was so easy to get out of the parking lot. So those types of things were all a benefit. But from the overall experience of what you want from a basketball game and kind of the energy level of being around like-minded people and, Cavs Nation, it was really tough. As far as the game was concerned, yeah, this is exactly what we've been hoping to see. The lineup that we talked about from last episode, we have our issues with Love and not sure how he's fitting in this season, but overall, having everybody back healthy, this is what is possible with this team. And it's what is so painful over the last week since this game, seeing everything kind of devolve back into injury and, having to play 7-8 guys a night because that's all we have left. I'm really, really thankful I went to this game and saw it in person.
This was a game where the Cavs blew the barn doors off of the Bulls. They were without Zach LaVine, but Nikola Vucevic, who they traded for, has been their star player since LaVine has been out. And he only played 25 minutes and was held to 9 points because of the Cavs' game plan and how they played against him. And they just frustrated him the whole night, which really allowed the Cavs to put the pedal to the metal and really beat them quite badly. And it's a game where we're highlighting it because it's such a rarity right now. The way this season has been up and down, this is a really high. And everybody played extremely well. Jetty was the only one that didn't play. But even in like Kevin Love's play, he only played around 25 minutes, but he was extremely efficient with his play, unlike other times. So this is what we wanted the starters to look like, and we got a taste of that. And maybe that is what happens next season, but we at least see what these 5 players in Sexton, Garland, Allen, Okoro, and Love can do on the floor together and be this successful. You kind of get, amped up for what the future lies with this team. There's a lot more to play and there's a lot more to go on in the offseason, but overall, this Cavs Bulls game was a lot of fun to watch. It's always great to watch a game where you can sink into the fourth quarter and know that you're going to come away with a win.
We were really tough on Kevin Love last episode, and I think rightly so. I'm not here to apologize for that, but I did notice in this game in particular, I watched him kind of take a back seat to being the main scorer. When the shots were not falling for him, I watched him start to dish the ball and step into more of an overall leadership role rather than saying, I have to be the guy. And because of that, he allowed Sexton and Garland to kind of take over. And he got a quiet 15 points and 9 rebounds. If we got that kind of game from him more often, I think that we'd be in a great place.
Let's go to the tape.
The month of April has not been kind to the Cavs, as the team has only won 4 games and lost 10. A bright spot, however, has been the play of their backcourt, Sexton and Garland. Sexland, for true fans, have improved their numbers in a lot of ways, but really it isn't a surprise with Colin Sexton, who has consistently grown his game every year, be it in his shooting, passing, or overall efficiency. Garland is the bigger surprise on a lot of levels, because his first year was such a disappointment. He only averaged around 12 points his first season, as well as under 4 assists. This season has been a huge improvement, and this month alone his scoring outpoint is 21.4 points, and he's shooting 43.6% from deep on 6.5 attempts per game in April. We noted that his 37 points against San Antonio was special, but how surprised are you that this whole month he is really putting it together?
As far as the season has gone, this is everything I've expected of Darius as the games have progressed. He's only showed me as a fan that he is getting more comfortable out on the court. He is looking to dish the ball more. His assists are creeping up every game. Sexland is here to stay, I think, as long as the Cavaliers want to invest in that moving forward. I think that the experiment has proven to be fruitful. Moving forward, I think probably the biggest concern for Darius is more about what personnel are they going to be structuring around him, and who can they find to be a solid backup point guard for him to come in and still run the offense kind of to his liking. So much so that maybe even you could bring him back in as a shooting guard and they could kind of play together depending on how you work out those minutes. Darius should have opportunities to kind of be let loose in the same ways that Colin has had those opportunities. So I think the sky's the limit with this kid. I was very on the fence with him all of last season, but this season he has proven to me that his star is rising. And I think that statistically, he's only showing that everything is going up. It's his second season, so it may not mean anything for a career, but it's damn promising from the standpoint of a Cavaliers fan.
I completely agree with you. Promising is the right word there. I also think it's nice to see that his point totals and his averages have increased by so much since his first season. His first season I felt it was disappointing really from the angle of how lost he looked. Coming into the season, he hadn't played much basketball at college because he got injured there. And then we started hearing whispers about how well he was playing from Larry Nance and some of the other veterans during training camp. They brought this up, but I don't think any of them expected this extra output in this month. Clearly, he's improved this season, right? Like you and I would be like, yep, Darius is better. Cool. All right, we're done with our special topic. Great. Bye. But this month alone, the thing that I'm seeing from him, and I need you to follow me here for a second from the eye test, is there are some LeBron level passes that he makes. What this team has struggled with since LeBron left is an offensive initiator like LeBron. There are a lot of teams that don't have that level. However, they do have a point guard who initiates the offense and understands where everybody needs to be and needs to get a basket. And I think Darius, at the beginning of this season, he was struggling with that, and he's going to still struggle with that. He's extremely young. But there have been some moments, especially with Jarrett Allen coming back. There was a play that he had, I believe it was against Toronto, where he had 3 guys on him in the paint. And he was able to just do a little touch pass to Allen for a dunk. So what I mean is, I remember when LeBron was here that there were a lot of guys who were used to doing their own thing, and they didn't know how to handle a pass or get a pass in the right place with him. And I think that that's what we're going to start seeing now with Darius. So your point about bringing up, hey, we need to have guys around him who can help him continue this success. That's why I say there are passes that I see him make that are almost LeBron level, where it's in that half court and he has such a tight window and he's hitting the guy exactly where he needs to be. And if they're not there, then it's either a turnover or it's going out of bounds, right? So I don't know if you think I'm crazy.
No, I mean, you're not saying that he is LeBron-esque completely. You're basically just saying that he's got that level of passing ability. And I don't disagree with the eye test. What I love about what I've seen from him over the last maybe 10 to 15 games is, I don't know if he had a conversation with the coaching staff or if he just finally felt comfortable enough to start letting it rip, but he's not thinking when he makes those passes. He's just kind of muscle memory reacting and just going, okay, he sees the player open and he fires the ball. And some of those passes feel like, they're bad ideas, especially that skip bounce pass that he had to Sexton. It felt like a horrible idea until it wasn't. I'm seeing a more consistent effort on his part to do like no-look passes and to find players that are cutting to the basket as he is moving back out to the arc. He's really stretching the defense in ways that I didn't see him do previously. And on top of that, statistically, looking at from last season to this season, the thing that jumps out to me, the number one stat, and you've already highlighted it, is the assist total. He's gone from 3.9 a game to 6.2 a game. That's a huge leap between his freshman season and his sophomore season. He's only averaging about 3 more minutes out on the court, and he's shooting 5% better from the field and almost 5% better from 3 as well. So he's stepped up everything statistically, and he is being more consistent with his passing, which is what you want from a point guard. The only thing that I was on him about in the beginning of the season, or even to the middle of the season, he has that tendency to kind of dribble it off of his leg. I just don't want to see a guy that has such amazing handles turn the ball over in such a rookie way. Moving forward, I want to see him control the ball and not turn the ball over the way that he has this season. Turnovers wise, it looks like they are up. He had 2.6 last season, and now this season he's averaging 3.1. Granted, those are going to go up when you're averaging more assists, but the proof is in the pudding. You and I have watched these games, and some of those turnovers are simply just from trying too hard, but then also getting a little bit ahead of himself.
What excites me about Darius, what I didn't see in last year and even at the beginning of this season, is now the personnel, the players around him, you're having to build certain types of players to understand how to help Darius get unlocked more. Just like what you mentioned earlier. I don't even think we really had that with Sexton, mainly because we're kind of understanding now what Sexton's game is, but Sexton is just going to keep getting better. I don't have a doubt in my mind that Sexton, even in his third year now, if Darius wasn't here, that he would still be getting more points, that he would still be that point generator, right? Where with Darius, it's like, wait a second, okay, he's getting double teamed high off the pick and roll. What players, what personnel are there to help him move the ball out of that trap and to get the easy basket, where our current players don't really know how to do that yet? So hopefully this helps the Cavs solidify a little bit more of a direction of how they want to go. You're 100% right. Sexland is here to stay. The experiment, I think, it's proven. We know that they can be successful. Let's see how else they kind of build out the rest of the team and help make Sexland even sexier.
I also think that it's been extremely impressive to see Garland kind of take the reins of the team when Sexton has had to be out for these various injuries. It's only his second season in the NBA, but he's taking the reins and doing what I think is more of a veteran move by saying, okay, it's on my shoulders tonight. I got to go out and step my game up so that we have a chance. We have not been winning without Sexton, but we wouldn't even be in these games without the performances that Garland has been putting up. There's a couple of wins that we would not have without him taking on that leadership role in the absence of Sexton. I don't think there's any competition between these two guys, but what's healthy to me is that when one cannot go, the other one is there and kind of keeping the energy up, right? Keeping the intensity up and something to get back out on the court and strive to match. Like, okay, I haven't been playing, but Garland's been out there balling and I want to get back out there and ball with him, like that kind of a thing. So I'm looking forward to this partnership continuing on into the future. And especially with Allen and Prince and a few of these other pieces, if we can hold on to those, the future's bright for the Cavaliers. We just need to get over these tough times.
The final seconds.
Coming up next, the Cavaliers will be playing the Magic, Wizards, Heat, and the Suns, all at home. Wins will most likely be off the table, so what are you hoping the Cavs will take away from these next stretch of games?
What I would really like is for them to surprise us. Their next stretch of games are all against playoff caliber teams. The Wizards are the lowest seed, but they are playing extremely well right now. I would like them to steal a victory here, where they've been close in a lot of these games recently. They haven't been blown out as much. Of the Wizards, Heat, and Suns, I would like them to steal a victory from one of those three teams. With 33 seconds left in the third quarter against the Raptors, NBA official Brandon Schwab gave Kevin Love the ball for an inbounds pass. He swatted it instead of passing it into Cavs guard Darius Garland. The ball incidentally went in bounds, resulting in Raptors forward Stanley Johnson picking it up and finding Malachi Flynn for the open three-pointer. Love has since apologized and said he messed up and was clearly frustrated with the officiating. What's your take on this whole Kevin Love situation?
I think that it was a bad moment for Kevin. His frustration for the season, for maybe the last few years, kind of came out in that play. In the replay, to me, it looked like the referee threw him the ball and he kind of, thought that in that moment he was allowed to be like, no, I don't want that. Because he seemed like he was walking over to the baseline and he was kind of getting in position to actually inbound the pass. And when he got the ball from the ref, he wasn't ready for it. And so when he batted it away in disgust, well, you were out of bounds and you just touched it and you just put it into play. So bad look on you, Kevin. Ultimately, it was his response afterwards that I kind of had a bigger problem with. On the one hand, I think that it was right for him to apologize and to say that it's a bad look, to reaffirm his commitment to the team and to the direction of the team and to the coaching staff and all of that. But on the one hand, I thought that was a little bit unnecessary. Again, he just made a bad call, and in real time, he got to see that bite him. And coming back later and having to defend and saying that, he rides or dies with this team and he's a Cavalier for life, none of that really seemed necessary. It's been a frustrating season. You've got 7 players out due to injury. This is par for the course. You've been playing a lot of games this way where you're really only losing in the last 3 or 4 minutes. You're watching it slip away. There's nothing you can do about it. And Kevin Love's performances have been rough. He can't shoot the ball to save his life when we need it. He's really not playing any defense when it matters. So yeah, that's what came out. A frustrated little mistake. So hopefully there will be no more of those. We don't need any commitments for the future based on this poor inbounds pass. We know that you're devoted to the organization while you're here. We know that you've appreciated being a Cavalier. Beyond that, just try to act professionally and move on. A couple of weeks ago, it was announced that Dylan Windler, left knee soreness, underwent surgery to address pain in his left patella tendon. This is concerning, since he missed all of last season with a stress fracture in his left leg. There is no current timetable for his return. This is just awful news. What should the Cavs do moving forward, and what are you hoping for Windler's career now that it seems he just can't stay healthy?
Well, I am hoping that he has a full recovery. I was leery of this pick to start with, mainly because I didn't see how Windler fit when they drafted Garland and KPJ and Windler all in the same draft. I just felt like Windler was kind of a project from the get because he's in his mid to early 20s, played 4 seasons in college. So usually when an older player is drafted, they don't work out. When he had a stress fracture during Summer League, when former coach John Beilein worked him so hard that he had a stress fracture, I was frustrated then because I thought the Cavs didn't really do their homework on this kid, and they should not have allowed their coach to overwork any of their players, and he clearly did that with Windler. So I'm hopeful that he does come back and is just healthy. And if he can work himself into the rotation, maybe. But I do think the Cavs need to kind of think about how else they can get other production on the floor. Luckily, they've done a pretty good job with guys like Broderick Thomas and Lamar Stevens and Dean Wade at finding some diamonds in the rough. So maybe they'll finally move forward with a player similar to Windler's skill set that they can find moving forward. And hopefully Dylan can just get healthy and not have these injuries going forward. The Cavs announced a couple Wednesdays ago that Dan Gilbert had bought the remaining team shares owned by Gordon Gund. How much do you miss the Gund Arena compared to the Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse?
I don't know how much it mattered to previous generations what the stadiums of their favorite teams were called, but I've, over the last decade or so, just given up on caring. I don't even really think about what a place is called. For the most part, these buildings had names when I became a fan, so I still consider them what they were. So in this case, the Gund or the Q, I did end up kind of adopting the Q over time. And that was mostly because it wasn't the Gund for me for very long. So it was easier for me to embrace the change. When it became Quicken Loans Arena, it was really easy to say the Q. Problem with Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse is that there really is no clever thing yet that anybody's come up with so that you can abbreviate it. Ultimately, if any fans of basketball are in the house, it always reminds me of the opening of that movie where teams are constantly having their names or their stadium names changed based on whatever is best for capitalism, right? I'm not happy that that is the reality that we've actually come to. It used to be a parody. It used to be for a joke, but now it's where we are at, that our sports teams have been bought by businessmen and women who really ultimately care about continuing to promote the products that got them there in the first place. And so in this case, Dan Gilbert wants us all to remember that he owns a mortgage company. That's it for this week. Thank you for joining us as always. We'll be back next week for episode 12.
As always, it's been fun to talk about the Cavs. Follow us on Apple Podcasts and other places like Spotify. Talk to you all soon.
Thank you for listening to the Cavaliers Basketball Club podcast. Let's go Cavs!